He touched my mouth with the back of his finger, brushing away a dot of cream just beneath my lower lip, and I laughed too loudly, far too quickly, trying to cover the silence that came after it. It wasn't a laugh from joy, not really. It was the kind that stretches over discomfort like frosting over a burnt cake. We were in the storage room, backs practically to the wall, both pretending the space wasn't too small and the air not too thick for late morning. The new whipped vanilla topping we'd been testing had spilled onto the side of the tray, and in leaning over to adjust the lids, I must have smeared it on my face without realizing. He noticed. He wiped it. His fingers lingered. Or did they? Maybe it was just a second longer than it should have been. Or maybe I wanted it to be. I walked out first, holding the empty tray with both hands like it anchored me. The front of the cafe buzzed with light chatter and steam and the low hum of the espresso machine. It was a bright day on the Oregon coast, the kind that makes tourists stay longer than they mean to. I kept my eyes on the table numbers, moving briskly, avoiding the glance I knew he was about to throw in my direction. When I reached the register, I saw the ticket stuck under the mason jar tip cup, written in tiny block letters. "Wish you looked at me like that on purpose." My fingers tightened around the paper before I even realized I was holding it. It wasn't for me. Of course it wasn't. Probably a flirty note from a college kid to one of our baristas. Probably. But the handwriting. It was neat. Too neat, just like his. The way he wrote on our chalkboard menus, all symmetry and tight loops. My stomach dipped, and I slid the note into my apron pocket before anyone saw. Why didn't I throw it away right then? That afternoon, I found myself moving slower than usual, wiping down the same counter twice, forgetting orders, folding napkins just to unfold them again. I could feel it. His glance, his presence, the way he always knew where I was in the room. My husband called around 5, voice full of static, asking if the milk delivery had come. He was on the road again, 2 counties away, handling another supplier dispute. I said yes. I said everything was fine. I didn't mention the note. I never did. When he came home later that night, we talked over pasta I barely tasted. He was tired. He sat across from me with his usual quiet focus, looking down more than at me, and I saw my own reflection in his spoon. Small, stretched, almost warped. I don't remember what we said, just that I leaned over and kissed him while clearing the table. I don't usually do that. The kiss was warm but flat, familiar but dull. He smiled after, more out of surprise than desire, and I wondered why that hurt more than I expected. After the dishes, I went upstairs to shower. The mirror fogged fast, and I traced my finger along the edge, trying to see myself clearly through the steam. What was I doing? Why did my skin still feel warm where he touched me? Not my husband, but him. The next morning, everything felt exaggerated. The smell of coffee was too strong, the sound of chairs scraping the floor too loud. I opened the cafe early, arriving before anyone else, pretending I wanted to reorganize the back shelf. He showed up an hour later, hair still damp from a shower, sleeves pushed up. I didn't say anything about the note. He didn't either, but I caught him watching me from the sink like he was waiting to see if I'd bring it up. I didn't, but I didn't throw it away either. Around noon, an older couple sat by the window, ordering the usual lattes with oat milk and sugar-free caramel. He made them. I watched his hands move, the way he drew a heart in the foam like it was nothing. He was good with the machine, but better with eyes. He always looked people in the face. Really looked, like he saw through the script of a cafe interaction and into whatever was buried beneath. I wondered if he looked at me like that when I wasn't paying attention. Maybe I wanted him to. At the end of his shift, he leaned on the counter and said, "The new topping works better with half the cream, by the way." He looked at me directly. I nodded. "Thanks," I said, voice low, too low. I waited for him to walk away before I realized I was still holding the cloth I'd meant to toss. Later that night, while I closed up, I found myself reading the note again. I unfolded it with careful fingers, the kind you use on a letter you didn't think you'd keep. I read it twice. The words didn't change. Wish you looked at me like that on purpose. I folded it again and slid it behind the till, behind a stack of unused coasters, like it belonged to the bones of the place now. And maybe it did. Do you know that feeling when something inside you shifts? Not violently, not obviously, but like a quiet crack running along the base of a wall you built years ago? That night I crawled into bed, and the silence between me and my husband stretched. I couldn't tell if he noticed or just preferred it that way. I lay there for hours, eyes on the ceiling fan turning above us. It was too warm to sleep, but not because of the weather. I closed my eyes, but all I could see was his finger, the way it touched the corner of my mouth, soft and uninvited and unforgettable. I opened the cafe later than usual, not because I need more sleep, but because I don't want to cross him in the narrow back hallway with nothing to say and nowhere to look. He is already there when I arrive, crouched by the espresso machine with a rag over one shoulder, his sleeves rolled up and his focus entirely on the chrome surfaces in front of him. I walk past without comment, pretending the sleeves don't draw my eyes, pretending the tight curve of his wrist doesn't catch in my memory like a thorn you thought had healed. I begin aligning the takeout lids on the front counter even though they were already lined up from yesterday, checking expiration dates that don't need checking, keeping my movements purposeful so he doesn't ask questions. Not that he would. Not today. He is quieter than usual, and I should be grateful for that. But his silence feels louder than his presence ever has before. When I tell him I'll close tonight, he barely glances up, just nods with a slow motion that feels too neutral, too practiced. There's something in that stillness I don't trust, a kind of restraint that makes me nervous even though he hasn't said a word. Later, after the lunch rush dies down and the hum of the grinder softens into background noise, I walk into the back to refill the syrup bottles and find him standing by the open supply closet, rearranging cartons like he's looking for something he already knows isn't there. He asks me quietly, not facing me directly, why I didn't throw away the note. The words leave his mouth like they've been waiting for the right crack in the day to slip through, and I nearly drop the plastic bottle in my hand. I say I don't know, and I mean it. I truly don't. Maybe I didn't want to. Maybe I did and just didn't finish the motion. Why didn't I? He turns to me then, face unreadable, gaze steady in a way that makes my breath catch. He says nothing more, just walks past slowly, and the brush of air as he moves feels colder than it should in this windowless room. I stay in that closet longer than I need to, realigning things that don't need straightening, standing perfectly still when the door finally swings shut behind him. There is nothing pressing me to move, and yet I feel the itch under my skin that comes only when I've let something slip and cannot name what it was. Later, I catch him looking at me again, this time over the lid of a blender, as if he's trying to figure out whether I'm angry or ashamed. I don't think I'm either. I think I'm something worse. Uncertain. After the cafe closes, I begin wiping down surfaces with exaggerated care, lingering over the same patch of wood until it nearly shines. He lingers near the front, pretending to scroll on his phone, but the way his shoulders keep shifting makes it clear he's waiting for something. I don't ask what. Eventually, he speaks again, this time from behind the counter, voice lower than usual, almost neutral. "You don't trust me with the keys?" he says, not joking, not accusing, just laying the question out like something forgotten on the counter. I don't answer for a moment, because I don't know how to without revealing something I shouldn't. I say I like closing, that I don't sleep well anyway. And he nods like he believes me, but his eyes stay on me longer than they should. That night at home, I undress in the dim yellow light of our bathroom, moving slowly, thinking of the way he watched my hands as I counted the register, how his fingers twitched when I passed behind him with the tray. My husband lies in bed already, reading emails on his tablet, and when I slide under the covers, he reaches out and rests a hand on my hip like a reflex. There's no affection in the touch, not really, just routine. When I wake the next morning, I reach for my phone and realize I've missed a message from the supplier, which means I'll have to call them directly. I'm halfway through the process when I walk into the shop and see him at the counter already, apron on, restocking pastry trays like he's been there for hours. He doesn't look at me right away. When he finally does, his mouth is pressed into a thin line like he's holding something back. I tell myself I don't care, but it stays with me anyway, tightening something behind my ribs that won't let go. He moves through the morning like someone rehearsing a role, polite but measured. Never too close, never too far. When I brush past him to grab a napkin bin, he doesn't step aside fast enough and our arms touch for half a second too long. He doesn't apologize. I don't either. After the midday lull, he starts cleaning the side fridge, methodical and silent. I ask if he needs help and he shakes his head. But there's something in the way he straightens up, the way his eyes flick toward me that makes my heart stutter. I turn away too fast and knock over a tin of cocoa powder, which explodes across the floor in a fine brown mist. He crouches to help me clean it, and for a moment we're both down there, arms close, knees almost touching. He hands me a wipe and our fingers graze again. It's the third time today, and I can't pretend I don't notice. He doesn't pretend either. He looks at me for a second too long, then stands, leaving me there kneeling by the mess that somehow feels like mine alone. At closing, he offers again to lock up, says I look tired and could use a break. I say no. I say I need the quiet. He nods and steps out the door but pauses, fingers on the frame, and without turning back, he says, "You don't have to be afraid of wanting something." Then he's gone, and the door swings shut behind him with the kind of silence that echoes too long. He sets the cup down too gently, the steam curling up into the space between us like a secret we're not ready to speak aloud. The latte is perfect, a tight, symmetrical heart drawn in milk foam with a small dusting of cocoa around the edge. And for a moment I stare at it longer than necessary, as if admiring his skill is safer than acknowledging what it means. I take the cup and turn away quickly, hoping the flush in my cheeks looks like heat from the machine, not something deeper rising to the surface again. Behind me, the cafe feels too quiet despite the soft playlist in the background and the occasional clink of a spoon against ceramic. He stays near the counter, wiping down a space that doesn't need it, moving slower than usual, waiting for something. When I glance up again, his eyes are already on me, not shy or apologetic this time, just steady, like he's preparing to say something and daring me to stop him. I carry the latte to the far end of the cafe and set it in front of the customer with a smile, but my hands feel unsteady, like my nerves are no longer under the surface where they belong. He knows I saw the design. He made sure of it, and I didn't send it back. When the last few customers leave and the chairs begin to empty, I take a tray into the storage room, trying to create space between us that doesn't feel like rejection. I'm halfway through restocking sugar packets when I hear the door open behind me. I don't turn. He steps in and lets the door fall shut with a soft click. The sound is subtle but final. He's not holding anything. He doesn't speak right away. I pretend not to notice. "I can't do this anymore," he says quietly, not angry, not urgent, just tired. I straighten slowly, my hand resting on the edge of the shelf, and still I don't look at him. "Do what?" My voice feels thinner than I expect it to. "This pretending," he says, like I'm not here, like you don't feel it too. I freeze because there's no safe answer to that. No version that doesn't unravel something. Why did I think silence would protect us? He takes a step closer and I finally turn. The way he looks at me, like I'm something fragile and dangerous at the same time, makes my throat go dry. I can smell the soap he used this morning, clean and citrusy, still fresh on his skin. The room feels warmer than it did moments ago, and I realize I haven't moved, haven't blinked, haven't breathed in a full sentence. "I watch the way you move around him," he says, voice low, steady, like you're waiting for something that never happens. His words don't hurt. They land like truth, soft but impossible to deny. I take a small step back, bumping into the shelf behind me, not in fear, just instinct. He doesn't close the gap. He just watches me like I'm the only detail in the room that matters. I shake my head once, not in disagreement, but in disbelief. He's 21. I am not. This is my cafe, my marriage, my life. I tell myself this silently, like a prayer I forgot how to mean. You ever think, he says softer now, that maybe this isn't wrong? It's just not allowed? The sentence hangs there, heavier than either of us can carry. I should leave. I should say something that ends this. But instead, I ask the only question I really mean. What are you doing to me? His expression flickers, like something breaks open behind his eyes, and before I can take another breath, he steps forward, just enough to reach, and kisses me. The kiss is brief. There's no force, no desperation, only the slow realization of something that's already happened 100 times in silence. His lips taste faintly of cinnamon and cream, and the warmth of his hand against my arm feels like it's always been there. I don't pull away immediately, not because I'm frozen, but because the contact answers something in me I hadn't dared ask. And when I finally do step back, his hand falls to his side like he's let go of something more than just skin. I'm sorry, he says, but he doesn't look it. I walk out without speaking, without glancing back, my legs too steady and my thoughts too loud. Out front, the cafe is empty except for a woman waiting for her takeout. I greet her like nothing has happened, because isn't that what we do? We swallow what we can't name, serve it with foam and smile, and act like it's just another day. Later, at home, my husband pours a glass of wine and hands it to me without words. We sit in the living room, the news murmuring in the background, and I feel the weight of the kiss still pressing against my mouth like a stain I can't wash off. He doesn't notice, or maybe he chooses not to. I look at him and wonder, is it better to be unseen or misunderstood? You ever get the feeling, reader, that the person you live with stopped seeing you years before you noticed? When I close my eyes that night, I don't see guilt. I see that look, the one he gave me just before everything changed. And it follows me into sleep like a thread I didn't mean to pull. The house is quiet when I wake, the kind of quiet that doesn't belong to early morning but to a kind of delay, like time is waiting to be filled. My husband left an hour ago for another 3-day run, a last-minute supplier problem in Eugene. And the sound of his suitcase dragging down the hallway still lingers somewhere inside me. I make coffee without turning on the lights, the warm hum of the machine grounding me in the rhythm of what's routine, though nothing feels routine anymore. At the cafe, I arrive before anyone else, even the bread delivery, and unlock the doors with hands that don't feel like mine. I take my time wiping tables, checking the sugar levels, slicing lemon bars I don't even like anymore. He arrives 15 minutes after opening, hoodie pulled low over his forehead. No words, just a nod. The kind that belongs to someone who didn't sleep well but won't say why. I don't ask. The shift stretches slow and quiet, and we both move around each other like pieces on a board, calculated, precise, careful not to collide. He works the register without looking at me, and I refill the napkin holders without thinking about the way his mouth felt or how still the world went when he touched me. I try to focus on the rhythm of customers, on the sting of citrus cleaner on my hands, but nothing keeps the memory down for long. Around 2, he offers to take out the trash, something he never volunteers for. And when he returns, he stays out back longer than needed, leaning against the alley wall like fresh air might scrub out whatever is still living in him. I watch from the prep window, unseen, and wonder what would happen if I joined him. But I don't. Instead, I turn back to the counter and refill the biscotti jar with such care you'd think it mattered to someone. After we close, I stay later than usual. The register count is off by 40 cents, and I recount it 3 times before accepting it. He's wiping down the espresso machine with slow strokes, not because it's dirty, but because it gives his hands something to do. The cafe smells like vanilla and dish soap and something heavier I can't name. When I tell him he can go, he looks up and says he'd rather stay. Early shift tomorrow, he says. May as well crash here. I nod once and say nothing. I don't tell him there's a cot in the office closet or that I keep an extra blanket under the sink. He knows. He's already reaching for the light switch when I lock the door behind us. We stay in the kitchen longer than necessary. He opens the small speaker drawer and turns on music I forgot I'd liked. Something soft and low from a playlist I made during our first month open. I don't ask how he found it. I don't want to know. He pours us both decaf and we sit on the floor with our backs against the fridge, mugs balanced on our knees. The floor is cold through my jeans, and I shift just slightly closer to the warmth of his arm next to mine. He doesn't move away. Have you ever just wanted to disappear? He asks, voice quiet like it's meant only for this room and this hour. I sip slowly, watching the light flicker under the prep sink. Not disappear, I say. Just pause. He nods, and we sit in that strange agreement, the kind that only makes sense in places like this, in time that doesn't count. When I stand, he follows. We clean up in silence, but the kind that hums with something almost spoken. At the door to the storage room, I pause and tell him where the cot is. He thanks me and adds that he'll open in the morning if I want to sleep in. I tell him I won't, and we both know I will. He steps inside the office and closes the door behind him. I wait until I hear the cot unfold, until I hear the sound of him settling in. Shoes dropping, zipper pulled. And only then do I turn off the front lights. Walking home feels strange. The streets are quiet but not empty. A couple passes by me holding hands, laughing too loudly at something only they understand. Their joy feels both distant and familiar, like something I once had, maybe still want, maybe never had at all. At home, I strip off my coat and stand by the kitchen window, the glow of the street lamps brushing the glass in soft streaks. I take off my shoes but don't go upstairs. Instead, I sit on the couch with a blanket across my legs and close my eyes. His voice lingers in my ears. Have you ever just wanted to disappear? And I realize that I've never answered that question honestly, not to anyone, not even to myself. What does it say about me that I didn't want him to leave? The sun is already spilling through the wide front windows when I arrive, and the cafe smells like baked sugar and warm milk, the way it always does after the first hour of opening. He's behind the counter, hair still damp, sleeves pushed to his elbows, and he doesn't say anything when I walk in. Just nods and moves aside so I can pass. I feel it instantly. The way the silence between us has changed again. Heavier now, tighter around the edges like a ribbon pulled too far. We move through the morning smoothly, mechanically, passing trays, wiping counters, brewing espresso like nothing has shifted at all. I laugh once, maybe twice, and the sound surprises both of us. A couple at the window table compliments our service and leaves a folded $5 tip in the jar, and he turns to me as if to say something, but doesn't. It hovers there, just behind his teeth. Like so much else. By noon, the pace has slowed. We wipe the same counters twice. He restocks the stir sticks. I polish the pastry case glass just to keep my hands moving. It's only when he starts prepping whipped cream that something breaks. He leans in with a mischievous grin and smears a dot of the fresh batch on his own nose, holding out the spoon like a peace offering. Taste, he says softly. Too sweet? I shake my head and laugh. Too loud again, too sharp. Then reach forward without thinking, wipe the cream from his skin and bring it to my lips. The moment freezes. His gaze doesn't drop. I feel the weight of it and something else behind it. Hope or hunger or a dare. Maybe all three. That's when the door swings open. I don't hear it at first, but I feel it. That change in the air. That sudden silence that doesn't belong to us. He's standing there. My husband. Still in his travel jacket, keys in hand, staring straight through the space between us. His mouth is slack, his brow furrowed, his gaze fixed not on the counter or the floor, but on me. My hand still close to my face, the taste of cream still on my lips, the laughter still dying in my throat. Behind me, I feel the stillness of the boy who has said too much without speaking. No one moves. The sun feels colder now. The light on the tiles turns hard and unforgiving. He doesn't ask a question. He doesn't raise his voice. He just stares for what feels like an hour and then slowly backs out the door, letting it close behind him with a sound softer than it should be. Neither of us speaks. He turns and walks to the storage room, and I follow slowly, hands shaking as if they belong to someone else. We stand facing opposite directions in that narrow back hall, separated by more than just plywood and flour dust. I finally turn. He doesn't. What just happened? I whisper, but I know exactly what happened. He came home early. That's all. He came back into a place where something had started to bloom in shadow and opened the door wide enough to show it for what it was. I should feel shame. I should feel panic or regret or anger or something sharp enough to cut through the fog in my chest. But instead, all I feel is this dull throb behind my ribs, like someone knocking gently from inside and waiting to be let out. He steps out from the storage room minutes later and starts wiping down the espresso machine again. The same motion, the same rhythm, the same silence. But nothing is the same. We don't speak the rest of the shift. When the last customer leaves, he says he'll take out the trash and I don't stop him. I stay behind, folding aprons into tighter shapes than necessary, trying to force control back into my hands. He doesn't return right away. I'm not even sure he's coming back. I sit down in the back corner of the shop, the stool cold through my jeans, and rest my elbows on the table. Outside, the wind picks up, and the front sign swings slightly, the small chain clinking against the glass with every gust. Everything feels louder now. Every creak in the floor, every flicker of the light overhead, every second without a voice in the room. What if I wanted to be caught? That night, at home, the door is locked from the inside and my key no longer fits. I try twice, then 3 times, and finally step back onto the porch, staring at the doorknob like it might change shape and let me in anyway. No message, no call. Just silence. Just absence. I look around, my car in the driveway, my coat in my arms, my breath rising in short, uneven clouds. And I understand in a way I didn't this morning. He saw enough. He didn't need proof or questions or denial. He saw me laugh, and he saw me linger, and he saw the cream still wet on my lips. And sometimes that's all it takes, isn't it? You can build a whole life out of glances and small comforts and shared sugar, and still lose it to the wrong moment caught by the right eyes. The next morning, the cafe is already open when I arrive, though I never gave out my set of early keys. Through the glass, I can see 2 new girls behind the counter, neither of them familiar, both of them moving with the stiff, deliberate energy of people still learning where things go. One of them glances toward the window when I hesitate near the door. I don't step inside. I just stand there, palms pressed deep into my coat pockets, eyes searching the interior of what was mine only yesterday. There's a new chalkboard menu, slightly crooked. The letters not as clean. The syrup bottles are in the wrong order. A small handwritten sign near the espresso machine says under new management. I feel something loosen in my throat. Not enough to cry, just enough to make breathing less automatic. The man from the bakery truck spots me from the side alley and calls my name. Asks if I'm dropping off a new order, if I'm training the new staff today. I shake my head once and offer the faintest smile, the kind you give when you're trying not to break in public. He doesn't ask again. He just tips his cap and walks back to his van. I sit on the bench across the street, the one with the chipped wood and uneven bolts, the one where I used to drink my own coffee before the morning shift. It's colder now. Wind moves up from the shore, stirring loose leaves along the sidewalk. I take a sip from the thermos I brought from home and immediately regret it. The taste is wrong. Bitter and heavy, like it forgot how to be warm. There's no message from him. Not from my husband, not from the boy who kissed me, not from anyone. I check my phone twice, then again an hour later, knowing it makes no difference. At noon, I drive home, or what I still call home, though part of me already knows the truth. I turn down the street slowly, half hoping the driveway will be empty, that this will all have been a warning, not a sentence. But the truck is there. The porch light is off. The blinds are drawn. I try the key again, More from ritual than hope. It still doesn't fit. There's an envelope taped to the glass, not labeled, not sealed, just folded once with crisp edges. Inside is a check made out in my name, the amount exact, the value of my share in the cafe to the decimal. No note, no apology, no explanation. Why does it hurt more that he said nothing? I sit in the car for a long time, engine off, fingers numb around the steering wheel. In the rearview mirror, I see myself clearly, older than I feel, smaller than I remember, still wearing the same coat from yesterday like something might still be saved if I keep holding on to the pieces. I drive to the grocery store without meaning to. I walk the aisles in silence, staring at rows of paper towels and breakfast cereal, surrounded by families talking about dinner and weather and whose turn it is to cook. None of them look at me. No one knows. No one can see the weight I carry in my chest like something still swelling. I buy nothing. That evening, I end up at the beach. The wind has picked up, tearing through my sleeves and stinging my cheeks. But I stay there anyway, watching the water churn and slide in restless loops. I sip the last of my coffee and feel the salt on my lips, mixing with the aftertaste of too strong brew and everything I didn't say. No one joins me. There's a man throwing a tennis ball for a dog further down the sand. A couple walks barefoot, shoes in hand. Their laughter drifts across the wind in short bursts I barely catch. I wonder how it feels to laugh without knowing what you've lost. The sky turns orange, then gray, then the kind of blue that feels like endings. I sit there until my feet go numb and the waves rise higher, daring me closer, but I don't move. I just stay where I am, letting the cold bite down into me like something earned. When I return to my car, the windows are fogged and the passenger seat still smells faintly of vanilla. There's a smudge on the dashboard where he used to rest his hand, and I wipe it away without thinking. My phone buzzes once, a weather alert, and then goes still. There are no more messages, there is no cafe, there is no key, just me. Just, just the silence that follows after sweetness. The bitterness that always settles at the bottom of the cup, no matter how carefully it was stirred.